Hi everybody, this is Serey and this is the Module 12 case study on Mrs. Stevens. So prior to getting started, I want to address some of the things that I think are important to consider when considering this case study. I think one of the key things is knowing the responsibilities of the principal. Every principal has a growing list of responsibilities in supervising his staff. We wear many hats, and those hats seem to just keep getting added on, but it's important to consider whether or not this principal did all of these things in this example. So first of all, the principal needs to build relationships with his staff, with his faculty, with her students. They need to make sure that they trust the leadership and that the leadership has faith and trust in the faculty and staff as well. This can be accomplished by creating some shared goals and doing some common visioning. Principals and leaders need to communicate expectations, provide research-based, intentional, and targeted professional development opportunities that coincide with those shared goals. We need to provide space and time for collaboration, mentoring, and peer observation, which is becoming more and more popular and proving to be more and more effective. And I think some of these things are some key things that the principal in our case study missed. And then, of course, we need to provide support along the way and coaching resources, and that includes personnel if that's what's needed. So a lead teacher on campus, a literacy coach, a math coach, the principal and APs themselves, perhaps mentoring and coaching. Always mentoring and coaching. I think these are some key things that need to be definitely addressed in this case study. We also need to look at the role of informal and formal assessments. In our case study, it was reported that the principal observed Mrs. Stevens twice and was working perhaps late one afternoon trying to get stuff done in a deadline in a timely manner and meet a deadline, and I think sometimes that impairs our judgment. We don't always look at everything that we need to. So some key things that formal and informal assessments play is that you have to do both, and you have to do both you have to do both frequently and provide common practices and shared goals and strategic focus of each of these, and then provide that feedback along the way and not just at the end. I think that we miss some key opportunities when we do it that way. In order to conduct meaningful walkthroughs and observations, we've got to have some focused look-fors. Prior to visiting, we have to communicate those look-fors. I think our principal failed to do that. We need to provide immediate feedback as often as possible, and we need to do our walkthroughs very frequently and at different times of the day so that we have a clear picture of what is happening in the classroom throughout the day. Some of the sources and data to look at, and again, this is something I think our principal missed, is providing observations and not judgments. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Providing specific counts, so a student was inattentive this number of times, and then providing resources, examples, and references for a teacher to further evaluate, consider, learn more about whatever it is that we're targeting our feedback on, and providing some specific examples and or modeling expectations. And then again, besides just the observations, I think we need to look at lesson plans, student surveys, professional development choices, and teachers' commitment to that, how they implement what they've learned, goal setting sessions and one-on-one meetings, and then most importantly, student growth. So a lot of these items were failed to mention in the case study, and I think this is another key part that led to some of the issue. Okay, so let's take a look at Mrs. Stevens and examine a case study in what not to do. So in the case of Mrs. Stevens, some factors that led to the conclusions of the principal are that students were not engaged in class discussions, were often heard talking amongst themselves, and when approached about motivation and class engagement, Mrs. Stevens turned defensive. So some of the conclusions that the principal drew about Mrs. Stevens is that she was seen as unapproachable, unmotivated, and irritable. She's viewed as an ineffective teacher with little classroom management. So some facts of this case. A principal recommends that a teacher's contract is not to be renewed for the following year after 2 reported unsatisfactory teacher observations. The case study does not claim whether or not there were prior walkthroughs, prior discussions, rapport with staff, professional development opportunities, those kinds of things. The observations of the principal included that the students were noisy prior to the principal entering the classroom, The teacher is perceived as not having classroom management because the students were often talking amongst themselves and not responding to her. And then when addressed, the teacher is perceived as irritable and non-responsive to the suggestions that the principal was making. The teacher claims that administration really doesn't have any idea of what the expectations are. They haven't provided her with any support, and they clearly don't understand the content of the class. She thinks very strongly that if there's been any mistakes made on her part, then it is the administration's fault for not supporting her. In this case regarding legal and ethical issues, it doesn't seem as though there are any specific legal issues. There's no necessarily broken laws, but we do have to think about contractual obligations and what we can fairly ask our faculty members to do if we're not providing them the support and the examples and the time that they need to correct that. So just some things to consider. The contracts are up for annual renewal. In some cases, that means that at the end of the year, you're not guaranteed a contract, and that's not explicitly stated in this case study, although they do talk about the teacher getting tenure if she was to be offered a contract the following year. So I think that's definitely something to consider. You don't want to leave a problem where it might be, but you also can't assume that there's a problem there if it hasn't had any chance for reproach or changes in behavior. And that's, I think, I think that's what we're really missing here. And, the teacher could claim that the principal is out to get her or just doesn't like her. And that's a real thing that happens. And I think that happens when we have a lack of trust. Looking at that observation form, I think this was very hard to look at and hard to read. And I think if I were a teacher, I would be crushed if I received something like this. But let's talk about the weaknesses first. It doesn't include multiple measures. It doesn't include student data, student surveys. It has a judgment call on personality. I don't think we can ever rate someone's personality as average, above average, or below average. We need to stick to observations, and that is real evidence of things that we actually see in the classroom. And then the observation form doesn't provide any space for specific examples, previous coaching techniques, previous attempts at allowing a teacher to, informing a teacher and coaching a teacher. And it really just doesn't include a whole lot of space for comments. And I think teaching is it's a people to people. There's so many of it. So much of it that's a soft skill that is hard to enumerate, and I think we need to include that when we are observing teachers and evaluating them at the end of the year. It does have more than 2 ratings, which is a plus. Based on the research we've done during these last 6 weeks, we know that systems with more than 2 ratings tend to be more accurate representations of what's really happening in the classroom. And it does include some out-of-the-box thinking by including relationships with students and peers. So it's not the worst form I've ever seen, but it definitely is not a strong one and not one that I would use on my campus or in any of my schools. So taking a look at some school district policies, not knowing, of course, where this case study is happening, I made some things I put up together some slides based on what we do at our school. I work at a parochial school, and at our parochial school, we don't really get a lot of guidance, and each school is kind of treated based on a pastor-principal decision, and contracts are up for renewal every year. So we don't really have to have a real reason for not renewing a teacher's contract, although we do try to be very fair in the way we represent that. So looking at my school, our new teachers are formally observed twice a year. This is for the duration of an entire lesson. Veteran teachers are only formally observed once a year. However, we do walkthroughs very frequently and at varied times throughout the day. And by very frequently, I mean that we are in classrooms probably every week. And then we actually do like a 5-minute walkthrough with a checklist probably twice a month, and then provide those forms immediately to the teachers. Like, we usually leave them right on their desks, and we just kind of observe or comment on things that we noticed, and that feedback is really helpful. We also provide time for goal setting. one-on-one meetings with mid-year and end-of-year reviews, and then we provide summative feedback that kind of summarizes all of those things. Based on this case study, it doesn't seem like any of that happened with Mrs. Stevens until the end of the year when it was time for contract renewal, and I think that's a problem as well. If I were to look at the district that I currently reside in, I did work for 1 year in our public school system, and they've got some pretty clear expectations set up in their appraisal handbook. So the number of times for redirection, the type of feedback given, the quality of feedback given, how often they have to review teacher and student data, all of those things are outlined. And so if this were a teacher in our public school system where I currently reside, this teacher would almost certainly have a case against this contract not being renewed because it doesn't seem as though she received adequate support, and I think that's a problem. So this kind of summarizes what the things that I just said. While we have at my parochial school, we have the option to not renew contracts simply based on numbers and feedback and even parent feedback, honestly, because I do work in a private school. The same is not true if she were working in the public school district. It's really important that wherever you're working at, wherever your building is in, and whatever policies you're supposed to follow, that you're following up on that and keeping up to date with the current status, because it definitely should affect how you take care of things on your campus, or could affect how you take care of things on your campus. So if I was the principal in the case study of Mrs. Stevens, I think that this teacher deserves a fair chance at redirection and learning more. And I do understand the idea of if we give it another year, then there's tenure there. But trying to think of our teachers as people, and if she's up for tenure, then how many years has she already been there? And are there things that we need to consider that are outside of the box? Is there trouble at home? Is there something we're missing? Are we doing our observations at the same time? I feel like we need a lot more information, and unfortunately this principal didn't leave themselves enough time to get that information, and without knowing those details, it's hard to say exactly what I would do. But I think in this case she should be coached and mentored, possibly with a clause on that contract. Again, I work in a parochial school where we have the freedom to do things a little differently, but we could leave a spot that says up for renewal pending next observation, or something along those lines that allows us some time to address the needs of the students and the needs of the teacher and come back and try again. Because I think right now she's unhappy. The principal doesn't seem happy with the decision and how it's going to go down. And most importantly, the students are going to suffer because she's unhappy. So that's really kind of a key thing, and I think we're missing the boat there. So that summarizes the case study and addresses kind of how I would review it and how I would approach it. Thank you for listening and for taking the time to be with me this afternoon.